Hello, and thanks for joining us for this brief video on exit planning. A few things you might be thinking about if you're considering selling your business. Let's be clear that every business goes through a succession event at some point. It's just a matter of time, and we'd rather be in control of that process than have it happen to us. So what are some of the important things we should be thinking about in this regard? Well, the first thing is goal setting. What exactly do we want to accomplish from a transaction? In some cases, it's the creation of wealth. The idea is that you've worked hard to build a valuable asset and you monetize that value by transferring ownership to another party. And we all like creating wealth, but it's not just about that. It's about lifestyle. Because what does life look like after the transaction? Maybe you're bored with your business. Maybe you want to work less, or maybe you want to go and do something completely different. This also impacts not just you, but family members and friends and so on. So we have to think through exactly what will happen to lifestyle post-transaction. Sometimes the identity of the seller is really simple. It's just one person who owns all of the equity, but in many cases, there are multiple parties who have to be considered. Sometimes you might even need consensus on the approach to the transaction. That can be complex and time-consuming. And it's not only the owners of the business who influence these decisions. It could be their spouses, their partners, their creditors who have some influence. Again, this can get complex. One important decision around an exit is whether you are completely vacating the business. That means you have no interest, no influence, and no ownership on the business going forward. But in many cases, it'll be a partial exit. Sometimes the buyer will insist you continue to be a little involved in the business because that will preserve some value in the business. Thinking about the buyer, there are many, many kinds of buyers that you might consider. If this is a matter of family succession, you need to think about whether that family member wants to take over the business and whether they're ready to assume a leadership role. Perhaps you're thinking of selling to employees. The good news is that they probably understand the business quite well, but are they ready to lead the business into the future? Maybe it's another business. It could be a competitor. It could be a customer. It could be a supplier that's thinking for their own strategic reasons of buying your business. And maybe it's a financial investor, someone who's deploying their capital into buying your business in the hope that it will grow in value, and then one day they will sell it again at some premium to another investor. Each of these has their own pros and cons which need to be thought through. Timing is really important also. These transaction discussions can take years, a decade maybe, to complete, because they don't always go to plan, but you should put some parameters around this. Are you thinking about a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year plan for exiting your business? Because that'll create discipline as to how you proceed. And remember, this decision and this information is really sensitive. So be careful with confidentiality with regard to your employees, your clients, and with other stakeholders in the business. Remember that some of the plans you make with regard to exit will simply not come true. The buyer might be poised to complete the transaction, about to sign the documents, but something happens which prevents that from going ahead. And so you should always have contingency plans in place. Remember also not to neglect your business while you consider transactions, because that might result in devaluing the business. And give some thought to what life looks like after the transaction. Many people make the actual transaction itself the main goal, and then they forget that after that, they need to feel they're contributing, they need to feel that they're important and useful, and they have something to do. And it can be a very lonely period post-transaction. So make some plans for that. And speaking of loneliness, there may not be many people to talk to inside the business regarding your plans. Remember, we have to keep this confidential for the most part. So surround yourself with advisors, whether they are legal, tax planning, accounting, business brokers, transaction advisors, coaches, mentors, and try to talk to some people who have been through this themselves. They probably offer the best and most poignant advice. So those are some ideas on things you might think about as you consider exit planning for your business. We hope you enjoy that, and we hope to see you on some of our future videos. Thanks for your time.